Hanafi fiqh is not studied the same way that you study Maliki fiqh. That's not how it's studied. And then once you've reached a certain level, if you look at Imam Badruddin al-Aini, his book Umdat al-Qari, fi Sharhi Sahih al-Bukhari, the Umdat al-Qari, the pillar for the reader in the commentary of Imam Bukhari, by Imam Badruddin al-Aini, the great Hanafi scholar. That book is the answer to Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani's commentary on Bukhari from a Hanafi perspective. Because he used to send students over to Imam Ibn Hajar to listen to his classes. They would come back and he would write down the answers to the Masail. And he released a book only a few months later than Ibn Hajar's answering his points. Now that book is what you read after the Nur al-Idah or the Hidayah and all these. You read that book, and that book, interestingly enough, has what? All the proofs, all the ta'liqat, all the isharat, all the istinbatat. It has all of those things inside of it because that's how you study Hanafi fiqh. You break down everything first. There's a dibaj to keep you from misappropriating the adillah, misunderstanding them, as is happening now in our 20th century English jahiliyyah, and people going astray, making their own madhab, making their own fiqh, is to keep you from doing that. And then when you've understood the fiqh and you've got a steady head on your shoulders, then you start to read and make sense of the proofs, to apply the proofs. And then you read Umdat al-Qari. Because all of the scholars are agreed that the order that you study Islam in is fiqh and then usul al-fiqh. But what you see happening today in English is people study usul al-fiqh and then they study fiqh. How can you understand the usul of fiqh without knowing what fiqh is? How do you study the process of photosynthesis and you don't know what a tree is? You can't. It's impossible. But that's what's going on right now. You have people that are going completely backwards. People trying to lay bricks don't know how to lay cement. People studying usul fiqh and they don't know what's fiqh. Houses falling down, deen going away, everything fading, and people saying, I don't know what's going on. We're just trying to get back to the evidences. But no, that's not how the Hanafis coded their books. It was to keep people from tampering with them. So the Mujtahidun al-Mutlaqun, when they wrote their books, the Hanafi ones, they wrote them without the proofs in the early books. They wrote them without the proofs. And they also used to not write them with consonantal markings. So many times you couldn't even read those books. You couldn't even read those books. All right? This is the wisdom of why, and people say it's old-fashioned and everything else, but let's compare between what you had then and what you have now. And you can make your own decision. Now, within that, when we move from that point to 153 Hijri, we still found that there were massive amounts of work. There was still a massive amount of work that the ulama were doing. And while this was going on, there were also Khawarij that were building up. The Khawarij Ibadiyah had been pushed away, but a new sect of Khawarij had grown. And this sect of Khawarij caused much havoc to Abu Ja'far Al-Mansur and damaged a number of buildings under his jurisdiction and his governance. And it took a long period of time before Abu Ja'far Al-Mansur was able to conquer them. And in 155 Hijri, he drove them back into North Africa, where they had originally risen from in their latest incarnation. In 156 Hijri, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur began to terrorize some of the people of Basra and some of the ulama of Basra. And it resulted in people rebelling against him and rebelling against his rule. And this carried on through the years 157 to 165. It continued on from areas 157 to 165. Now, something I want to mention that I think is important. In the year 167 to 170, I just want to mention a few things. Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf was made the chief Qadi of the Abbasid Empire under its jurisdictional council in 136AH. And he took bay'ah with the fifth Khalifa and named him Al-Rashid. The Khalifa's name was Harun Al-Rashid. And he named him Al-Rashid. Now there's just one thing I want to mention very quickly. Sometimes when people will see names like Musa al-Hadi, Harun al-Rashid, they will say, well, these names are shirk, because how can they be taking the names that have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes? Harun al-Rashid, Musa al-Hadi, all of this is shirk. We have to answer this. Really, it's unfortunate because it has to be answered in a common sense way. When you read the Arabic books, sometimes a name or something will render two meanings. If you read the name Harun al-Rashidu, Harun, who is al-Rashid, that's kufr. Harun al-Rashidu, that's kufr, because the name is being attributed to the person as if it is who they are. Harun al-Rahmanu, Harun is al-Rahman, right? But if it's read, and it is, because that's how the ulama understood it, Harun al-Rashidi, which it's maksur on the end. Harun, who belongs to al-Rashid. Harun, who is guided by al-Rashid. And this is why you'll find people who have the name al-Hakim, like the great Imam al-Hakim. Well, he shouldn't have that name, that's one of Allah's names. No, when you read his whole name together, al-Hakim is maksur on the end, which means idafa in possessive form. That means that he belongs to that thing. So there's a difference between being called Ahmed London, which would seem like your last name, and Ahmed of London. So Harun al-Rashidi is the similar of saying Ahmed of London, and not Harun al-Rashidu, Ahmed London. So we have to be very careful, because now, again, people are reading Arabic books without any voweling in them. These books have no voweling. And they're saying, well, subhanAllah, there was so much shirk even back then. No, that's not what these names mean. That's not what it means. Now, when he named him Al-Rashid, that was in 166 Hijri. Al-Mahdi Billah, the third Abbasid Khalifa, died in the year 170. After 10 years, and his son Musa al-Hadi ruled for only a year as the fourth Khalifa, and then rule passed to his son Harun al-Rashid. So Musa al-Hadi is the father of Harun al-Rashid. Now during this time, this is where something significant happened. Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, previous to this time, scholars were in the judiciary, but they were not under, the judiciary had not become, it was not part of the government. During this year, the Abbasids brought the judiciary within the governing system. And Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, when he came into it, although he was outspoken, he began to have pressure exerted on him by the Abbasid government. Because now he was within the system. And pressure began to be put on him. It began to be put on him. Harun al-Rashid died, the fifth Khalifa of the Abbasid Khilafah, dies in the year 172. His son Al-Amin came to power in the same year as the sixth Abbasid Khalifa, but there was a war of succession between him and Al-Ma'mun. And in 176 AH, Al-Ma'mun defeated and killed his brother, coming to power as the seventh Abbasid Khalifa. In the year 190, Al-Ma'mun had a dream where Aristotle visited him and told him to translate the Greek classics into Arabic. In his time, Al-Ma'mun was a great man of letters. He enjoyed reading, he enjoyed study and the science of the arts. And it was he was the main reason why Dar al-Hikmah, or the House of Wisdom, which included huge amounts of Greek manuscripts and other things, was opened in Baghdad, or the area that later became what we're calling Baghdad. Once that happened, people that were translating those books began to digest some of the information that was inside of them. And it began to become part of their Islam. Some of them went so far as to say the Greek fathers had been prophets sent to the previous lands. However, some of their words needed proper interpretation for the layman to understand. And so Greek philosophy spread everywhere. You'll find people that said, well, Socrates might have been a prophet. Aristotle might have been a prophet. There's people today that say that. People today that you can listen to on MP3s and on lectures that today say that they believe Aristotle and Socrates and Plato may have been prophets. Buddha may have been a prophet. Krishna may have been a prophet in this day and age. And again, it's a fold over from that. Now, the ramifications from this can be felt in this way. When this philosophy spread, it fed into something that was already there within the cults that began to spread on in the underground scene. In the class of Imam al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, who was the chief student of Ali, the very one who Ali put a tarbush on his head, wrapped the amama, and said, "You shall judge between people." So that was Ali's direct successor. Al-Hasan al-Basri had a student in his class named Wasil ibn Ata. Someone came to Al-Hasan al-Basri and asked him that there are some people who say that if someone commits a major sin, they are lost for all eternity. He was referencing the Khawarij. He said, then there are some who say that no matter what sin one may commit, they're still perfect in Iman, a perfect believer. He was referencing the Murji'ah. What do you say about this? Wasil ibn Ata interrupted the dialogue and said, I believe that such a one is neither a kafir nor a Muslim, but rather he is in the fire for all eternity, but he is neither. So he said he is neither a kafir nor a Muslim, but he's in the fire for all eternity. Al-Hasan al-Basri, as any good sheikh would, expelled him from his class. And Wasil ibn Ata said, "I'tazalna, we have isolated ourselves," which is where the word Mu'tazila came from. And they gave themselves the name Ahlul Tawheed wal Adl, the people of Tawheed and true knowledge. And this is where the Mu'tazila began to start from. As they grew on the underground level, they began to infiltrate into the presence of the Khalifa until they gained a hearing with Al-Ma'mun. Their positions include denial of the names and attributes of Allah by explaining them away as metaphorical. Allah has not written anything down. Salvation was by deeds and faith. Someone with no deeds had no salvation. Considering Uthman and Ali to have been upon falsehood or error was their position. The Qur'an is the created speech of Allah and not eternal in form and composition, meaning by this that the Qur'an has human elements within it. It is not completely revelation. 6, the denial of the punishment of the grave because they reject Ahad Hadith. Right? This is part of the reason why the Hizb ut-Tahrir, they are Mu'tazila in their creed, because they deny the punishment of the grave by denying Ahad Hadith. They are Mu'tazila. And that is why that they are. That's one of the reasons that they are. Denial of the existence of the fire in the paradise. They believe that they've not been created yet. The denial of the preserved tablet having the deeds of human beings written on it. The denial of the fountain and the believers will gaze on the day of resurrection. Not praying behind anyone who does not specifically say that he is from the Mu'tazila. So their position is, you are not a Muslim until, you're not upright until we have checked you out. So once we say, how do you feel about this? What do you think about that? What do you say about this? Once you've given us the correct answers, then you're a Muslim. Much like today, when you're in the masjid, and someone asks you, where is Allah? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? What do you say about these? What do you say about those? And if you've given the right answers, alhamdulillah, you are upon right guidance. But Allahu Akbar, if you give the wrong answer, woe be to you, because you could be in danger of being slandered or physical damage. And this is how it's being held. And this is from the Mu'tazila and the Khawarij. They proclaim that anything that did not make sense, logically could be explained away or did not have to be accepted, as the religion must be logical. Allah will not be seen in the paradise by the believers, and the rejection of a hadith narrated by a small number of companions. Now, what happened was something very severe, because during this time, there was a widespread amount of confusion because of the tribulations that the Mu'tazila were creating among the underground. Because Dar al-Hikmah they frequented, and they did a lot of other things. Here's another thing that happened. After Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf's death, rahimahullah, and many of the other major qadis of the Hanafi school.